Bueno, me encuentro con el señor Robert Hastings. Hi, Bob.
Thank you.
Es uno de los investigadores que más admiro en lo personal en el fenómeno ovni. Él ha venido investigando los casos de encuentros de ovnis con bases nucleares en los Estados Unidos, donde hay silos, donde hay misiles con cabezas nucleares. Y él ha venido entrevistando a militares que le han dicho de primera mano lo que les ha ocurrido ahí. Es verdaderamente extraordinaria esta investigación. Congratulations for the investigation you have done around the nuclear weapons and the UFOs. Why did you decide to do this investigation, Robert?
In 1973, I was aware of information leaking out about UFO activity at nuclear missile sites. I knew this was important. My father was in the Air Force at one of these missile bases where this was taking place. So in that year, I began to interview former and retired Air Force personnel about their involvement in these incidents. And over 41 years now, 42 years, I've been investigating this, interviewing persons who were involved in incidents where UFOs hovered above their nuclear missiles and the missiles malfunctioned. In other cases, the missiles activated. Very important information.
It is very important information because this is military personnel. We are talking about the people who was in charge of nuclear weapons, and they are telling us that the UFOs came there and sometimes disarmed the missiles or sometimes armed them to be launched.
Correct, that's correct. And, you know, we know that this went on in Russia. Documents were leaked from the Soviet Union after the collapse of that nation by a reporter named George Knapp, and he brought them to America. It says that UFOs hovered over Soviet, that is Russian missiles, and the missiles began doing strange things. So we have an outside third party, in my opinion, beings from another world who are very interested in humanity's welfare and have stepped in this very important time in human history when we have weapons that we can use to destroy ourselves and are showing their displeasure, in my opinion.
We have even a case where we know that a rocket somehow was destroyed on the air because it had something, a nuclear weapon inside.
Yes. A man named Dr. Bob Jacobs was in charge of a telescope in California, Vandenberg Air Force Base, in 1964. They were filming missile launches. They had a missile dummy nuclear warhead testing in the camera frame, and they see in the camera frame a UFO came in, circled it, shot beams of light at it. The missile warhead falls into the ocean. Classified top secret. The CIA confiscated the film.
This is very strong material. Why you think the UFOs come to the nuclear bases?
I hope, my belief is that, again, they're concerned about human's welfare, humankind's welfare. They think that we could potentially destroy ourselves with these very terrible weapons. We still have thousands of nuclear weapons. Most people don't hear about them nowadays after the end of the Cold War, but we have thousands of nukes. The Russians have thousands of nukes. It just takes one mistake, one misunderstanding for this to be a major human affair. All countries around the world will be affected by radiation.
How many witnesses have you interviewed?
More than 150 at this point, from colonels down to airmen. And they say, I mean, these were the people that the U.S. government trusted to initiate World War III. If it had come to that, they would have turned the keys and launched their missiles. Very credible, very trustworthy. Now they're saying UFOs flew over my missiles, the missiles malfunctioned.
You just finished a documentary, an incredible investigation that we just saw. You are allowing us now to present this trailer from your documentary, and this is an exclusive, a world exclusive for Tercer Milenio.
No one but you has this at this point.
Thank you. Vamos a ver este trailer que nos presenta aquí Robert Hastings. Extraordinario, ya lo verá usted.
On August August 1st, 1965, a dramatic, large-scale UFO incursion took place at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming, as this declassified report confirms. Dozens of sightings of disc-shaped craft cavorting at low altitude over Minuteman missile silos, known as launch facilities, were reported by the Air Force security personnel guarding them. Former launch officer Jay Earnshaw has discussed his involvement in one such incident that night.
I was in command of Capsule Echo 1 at Warren Air Force Base. Got a call about 3:30 in the morning, somewhere that time, from the flight security controller above, who said that, "Sir, there's some strange objects out there." I says, "What do you mean?" And turns out that he had observed, along with the rest of his response team members, what looked like 5 to 6 oblong lights stacked on top of one another, just outside the gate at Echo 1. They didn't seem to cause any particular damage. They didn't seem to put out any beams of light or anything else like that. They simply were there, stacked up. It was rather a benign incident at the time. The paperwork all disappeared.
Over the next 2 years, similar UFO incursions also took place at Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota, and Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota. Although those disturbing incidents were reported in official records at the time and occasionally leaked to the media, many of the details only emerged decades later in the testimony of former missile launch officers.
I was on duty at Echo, which is our squadron command post. We had strike teams respond to alarms from the missiles. They were 3 to 5 miles away. And they jumped in their trucks and went roaring out there and called me back and said, "Sir, for lack of a better description, there's a flying saucer hovering over that missile, and there's a beam of reddish light going down to it." So I assumed they were taking data with that beam. It wasn't destructive as far as I know. It had to be a data collection thing. I'm sure they scanned the warhead or something or other.
Although the Air Force could not yet know it, the most dramatic nuclear weapons-related UFO incidents were about to occur.
During the pre-departure crew briefing, it was mentioned that some missiles at November flight had gone off alert. We reached the launch control facility. We entered the gate after giving the appropriate password, and the above-ground personnel briefed us on what had happened. And essentially, we were told by the site manager that an object had been sighted out the windows with flashing lights, and it was probably about 80 to 100 feet in diameter. It then went to our main gate where it hovered, and when we debriefed the underground launch crew, they indicated that all the missiles that they controlled had gone off alert at the time that object had been hovering next to the main gate. My crew commander, Major Tollerud, told me that he had received a call overnight, evidently while I was on rest break below ground, and saying that we as a crew were never to speak about this again. This was a very serious incident. I mean, something to take our nuclear-tipped missiles off alert. It was something that we had never been prepared for.
The same year that these amazing events were unfolding in secrecy, Secretary of the Air Force Harold Brown appeared before a congressional hearing and dismissed the idea that information about UFOs was being kept from the American public.
We have not been hiding anything. The investigations have been made public. The explanations of those where there is a clear explanation have been made public. The hearing this morning was public for just that reason.
Brown's claims have now been discredited, but the strict security measures imposed on military witnesses at the time meant that decades would pass before the public learned the facts about UFO activity at nuclear missile sites. In any case, the next known incident, at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana in March 1967, left no doubt that those aboard the UFOs were intent on disrupting the functionality of American ICBMs in their underground silos.
Robert Hastings, this is extraordinary, what we just saw. I imagine that the whole documentary is going to be a very strong evidence of this presence and the relation with the nuclear weapons. Why are you asking for help to finish this documentary?
We are 90% finished, but we still need money for animation and for soundtrack and other technical needs. And so at my website, ufohastings.com/support, we have asked an appeal to the public to help us. Even small amount of money would help from many people for us to finish this film. It will go for nothing but the film. It's not for me personally. I drive a 25-year-old Honda. I'm asking for people who think this is important to help bring this film to the world.
Pues ya lo escuchó usted. Puede usted también ser parte de la historia ayudando a pues terminar este extraordinario trabajo que va a ser histórico. Créame que va a ser histórico. Usted quiere su nombre ahí, pues es una gran oportunidad. Muchas gracias. Thank you.